Hi, I'm Darren Llewellyn. Let's talk about electrical safety, specifically the training that is required by 70E and also OSHA. In OSHA 1910-332, Subpart S, Electrical, OSHA has specific requirements about training. The OSHA requirements apply to employees who face a risk of electric shock that has not been reduced to a safe level, almost exact same words in 70E. In OSHA, there is a list, a table of occupations. All these people face a risk of electric shock, things like electricians and maintenance folks, things like that, and they all have to be trained. Other employees who also face a risk, and this is people not on that list, and people who are not qualified, must also be trained. Qualified people, if your employer considers you a qualified person to do electrical maintenance work, for instance, you also have to be trained on a very specific list that's in OSHA. I don't have time to cover it in great detail. You need to access this yourself, but you have to be trained in identifying nominal voltage, selection of test equipment, identifying electrical hazards, those kinds of things. You have to have received this electrical safety training to be considered qualified. So if you've been an electrician or a maintenance person for years and years and years, your employer considers you qualified to do this, but you haven't received the electrical safety training, you are not considered qualified in OSHA's eyes, or 70E for that matter. So you must have received electrical safety training for you to be considered qualified. OSHA, 70E both agree on this. 70E has very similar requirements when it comes to electrical safety training. You have to have received the training. You have to be trained to identify the hazards, how to measure nominal voltage, test equipment, a long list of things. This is not a class on those things, but you need to receive that kind of training on all those items. Unqualified people also must be trained, and they must be trained on whatever hazards that they may face. Some of the hazards that a qualified person might face are things like they're using an extension cord or attachment plug on some portable piece of equipment that's supposed to have 3 prongs on it, and somebody's cut off the ground prong. Well, this is unfortunately a too common occurrence, but that they need trained to not use that piece of equipment. They need trained on how to inspect an extension cord or an attachment plug cord on a piece of equipment to see that it's safe. Retraining is also important, and retraining is triggered by several different events. One is time. 70E requires that a person be retrained every 3 years. Now, oddly enough, 70E comes out every 3 years. So every time procedures change, we need retraining. That's in there as well. So you have to stay up to date with your training. Other things can trigger retraining also, like you have a maintenance person that's been out working and is considered qualified by the employer, and you witness this person not doing it properly, not working safely, not wearing the PPE, not following the different procedures and policies that you've set forth and that are in 70E. If you find this person doing this, they have to be retrained. That's one of the triggers. Another thing that might trigger retraining is if you're asking somebody to do something they don't do very often. Maybe it's racking in a breaker or something. They don't do this, maybe every couple years. Well, they need retrained if they don't do something annually. They need retrained if you have new equipment, new policies, new procedures. Let's say you replace an old piece of equipment with a new one that has different safety issues. They need trained on that. I've been doing training for a long time, almost 30 years. I know I don't look that old, but I did my first training class as an instructor in 1989. And I taught at a vocational school, taught night school to factory folks. Loved it, fell in love with training. I am the biggest lover of training ever. I love taking training. I love designing training and doing it. So, The training chapters on 70 I really like because it believes what I believe in, that people need training. I like the fact that there's triggers for retraining. I like the fact that you have to be retrained every 3 years, and I don't just say that from a business standpoint. I really believe it's important. So train, train, train. Think about it. When was the last time you did electrical safety training, for qualified or unqualified? Can you remember? If not, maybe you need to redo it. So everybody needs training often. You can't train people too much, in my opinion, but I'm a lover of training. Until next time, thank you very much.